Welcome, Internet, to the Pixel Play Podcast, your weekly podcast where we get together to discuss all the news, rumors, and discussions going on in the video game world. I am one of your hosts, Kaylan, aka Ktastrophy, joined as always by my co-host, Adam, CSRadical. This week, we're going to be talking about God of War coming to PC, Xbox not having any big tentpole games, and if that's an issue, as well as the abysmal launch of the Nintendo Switch Online expansion. And we're also going to be having a review for Back 4 Blood. If you like what you hear, you can always listen to us wherever you get your podcast by searching for Pixel Play Podcast, or you can see our lovely faces on YouTube by searching Pixel Play Podcast. Pixel Play, all one word. If you want to be part of the discussion, be part of the episode, feel free to send us your questions, your comments, your concerns, your recipes, whatever you want to send. We're happy to take them. You can reach us by searching us on Instagram or Twitter, pixelplaycast, and we have a Discord where you can come in and chat with us and other fans about what you're seeing in the video game industry, talk to us about what we talk about, share stories, and just generally have a good time with fellow fans. Adam, I think that's about it for our socials. How are you doing?
I just want to point out, I didn't know we had fans. I thought we just had slaves that we had just paid to kind of sit in the Discord to make it look pretty for a little while.
Wait, you're paying them?
I'm
not paying them.
The check's not.
Did we forget to pay them?
Don't worry about it. That's a tomorrow problem. Problem.
I'll have to get the checkbook. Now, they're gonna come back to us in the Discord and be like, "Where's our money?"
Yeah, I think we might have pulled the curtain back too far. This might be the end of the show, guys. We have to start paying people now.
You know what? I think they can have a percentage of what we make. So.
Whoa, wait a minute. Do we get paid?
No, that's the thing. They can have 50% of our earnings. It's 50% of nothing.
So that's they pay us then. If it's negative of nothing, that usually means we get something, right? I think that's good math.
We are terrible business owners. we should never own a business. Adam, let's actually just jump right in and get started. I figure we kind of have a little bit of everyone's getting a fair share in this week's episode. So I have PlayStation news open up first, so I figure we'll just start right there. So if you haven't heard, God of War, the 2018 game, is coming to PC. So I found this from Mobile Syrup, another Canadian outlet, so you go support the locals. So they write, the PC version of God of War released January 14th, 2022, and offer a variety of technical improvements, including 4K resolution with an unlocked frame rate, support NVIDIA's deep learning super sampling, and standard and a 21:9 widescreen monitor support. This is going to be handled by Vancouver-based video studio Jetpack Interactive. They confirmed with Ars Technica after the outlet reached out to determine which developer was working on it. Jetpack's previous titles included PC version of Dark Souls for Bandai Namco, general engineering support for Plants vs. Garden Warfare 2 for EA, and the PS4 port of Orcs Must Die Unchained for PlayStation. Adam, this had mixed reactions on the internet. Some people were upset. Some people were kind of complaining that, this is a PlayStation exclusive. It should stay PlayStation. Why are they taking it to PC? Others celebrated the move. Where do you fall on this?
I'm just quickly Googling when this thing came out. April 20th of 2018. It's been 3.5 years, guys. It's fine. It's fine. Relax. Let other people have fun too. Remember that whole thing that we used to grow up as gamers? We're in our 30s now, so we're kind of getting in that point of
we're old.
Yeah, we are. We always used to wonder, man, I wish more people was playing this. I wish more people was part of this stuff. Then I wouldn't feel so outcasted. And here we are 20 years later, I guess in my case, and some people it's even longer than that, and we're watching people get mad because a game's ported to PC that more people can play it now. Really? It's not like Uncharted 5 is coming out and we're finding out that's going to be on PC as well as PS5. No, it's a game that was 3.5 years old getting a port so more people can play it that don't feel like spending hundreds of dollars on another piece of tech they probably don't want to pay for. You guys okay? Because I'm okay. I'm okay.
Just to confirm, are you okay?
I might not be. I'm not sure anymore.
Yeah, for me, I'm of a similar mind. I mean, it has been 3 years, almost 4 years by the time that this game does come out. And I'm of the same mind. This is a smart move for Sony. This is a PlayStation 4 game that did get, an upgrade on the PS5, but it's a last gen game, and it doesn't feel like it. It doesn't look like it, and that's not to diminish anything from the game, but that game is now on sale for $10 at times on the PlayStation Store. It's not driving business. It's not a huge revenue seller for PlayStation. Hell, you get it for free. Well, free in quotations, when you get the PlayStation Plus bundle that they have for PS5. So like, it's not generating any money. So it's an opportunity for Sony to, get a second life of this game and get a second or third source of revenue for it.
And potentially get them to buy a new console when the sequel comes out.
That's the thing. You are throwing a wider net, and, God of War Ragnarok is not going to come out day and date on the PS5 and PC at the same time. So you're going to have people who played on PC, and now they have to, contend with, do I want to wait 3 years? And potentially spoilers for God of War, just so I can play it on my 21:9 widescreen monitor. So I think it's a good thing. It boosts and makes more people familiar with Sony properties and Sony games. Brings revenue to the company, and I don't see a downside for that. I mean, I could see if this was an argument for like a competitive game where someone having a mice and keyboard might have an advantage in terms of mobility and issues in terms of on a competitive stage. That I understand, but you're playing a single player game. Your experience is not diminished by whether someone else is playing it on PC or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, like next, like and by the way, these are the same people probably that are mad, like because we're assuming they're Sony ponies at this point, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're probably furious that Bethesda is now an Xbox property. So you don't like it when somebody else, moves it to somewhere else specifically there. But when a company doesn't move exclusivity and just gives more people the chance to play a game, you're mad at that. Like, make up your mind which one you guys want. Do you want Bethesda to make games for everybody, or do you want Sony to never release a game ever outside of their console? Like, you can't have both opinions here.
Yeah, I'm of the same mind. What I found interesting is that I'm just looking up here. The publishers for this is Jetpack Interactive, who's helping with the port. Whereas, like, if I remember, and I'm just looking here, Sony purchased back in July Nixus Software, which was meant to be they were a PC port developer, and I'm surprised that they're not the ones that are porting over God of War.
Then that maybe makes us wonder what else they might be doing then.
Yeah.
There might be something else going that's getting ported that we don't know about yet.
Yeah, like I'm trying to think what that would be, but like
could it be a friendly neighborhood PC port? Maybe.
Could be. That would actually work out with the timeline. Get Spider-Man out, get it out 6 months before the game comes out in 2022.
It definitely.
Oh no, it's 2023. Did they say whether it was 22 or 23?
I don't know if it has. I can't remember if the trailer did or not. Now that I think about it,
you looking it up right now?
I am.
Okay, and this is what I think. Like, I think the writing on the wall was that these games are going to be coming to PC. I mean, we're already seeing it with Death Stranding. We're seeing it with Horizon. We're seeing it now with God of War. I've heard rumors that Little Big Planet is been there. There's rumors that might be coming soon too. So like, I don't think Little Big Planet will be coming soon because that game just got released. But I think you're going to start seeing it, 2-3 years later, once a game is pretty much all inside of dead revenue wise. I think you're going to start seeing them more and more putting them on PC, and it's a win-win situation for Sony in that they're now getting a second source of revenue, and they're getting more people aware of their games. The people who've held out for 3 years for a God of War game, we're not going to decide to go buy a PlayStation next year to play God of War 2018.
So to go back to the Spider-Man and Nixus potential, well, the news of them acquiring them was in July, and the second Spider-Man, well, I guess third technically, but it's Spider-Man 2 is the current listing. It's due for 2023. So if you were trying to port a game to PC, let's say you wanted about a year or so for it, yeah, it seems like a pretty good timeline.
Yeah, release it in July of
Like you could release
2022.
it sometime late next year, and
Mm-hmm.
it depending on like maybe you're setting for a May 2023 for Spider-Man 2. That's not a bad like 6 month gap potentially if they wanted to.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, Xbox is already on the PC crowd as well with their Game Pass, so like that's that. The question is, do you think Nintendo will ever get to the point where they're going to start putting their games on like PC?
I mean, given how much of a pain in the ass it is to put 30-year-old games on their damn thing, I can hardly see it working the other way around where they're willing to give present games. I've said it before, I'd love to play Fire Emblem on PC, but I don't see that happening anytime soon.
Yeah. Ooh,
But then again, I guess I should say, did I ever think, that Horizon or Uncharted or anything else was going to be on PC about 5 years ago? God knows, so who knows?
Yeah. I think Nintendo eventually will. I mean,
They might have, well, it depends really if they, unless they're just really satisfied with the core that they've chunked out for themselves. If they're happy with that, then maybe they just be as stubborn as they've always been and just stay there. Whereas,
no,
so I think Sony kind of just sees like, okay, we've already got like a pretty big chunk here. Now, if we really just want to get like a couple more people to swing our way, or at the very least, if we can't swing them to our console, let's find ways for them to spend, 40, 60, maybe even $80 to go play at least our top tier experiences when we can make a little bit extra on the side.
PC gamer money is just as good as PlayStation owner console money. Wow, I butchered that. Yeah, I don't think Nintendo will, and I think the reason that you won't see Nintendo come on PC, initially I was thinking like, yeah, they will. They're just always behind the times, but I think the modding community is something that really scares Nintendo, and I think that'll be a reason why we may not ever see their games on a PC console.
Yeah, I can't imagine them being too happy with the idea. You put Breath of the Wild on PC, there is literally going to be 2,000 different nude mods within like a day. It's just gonna happen. And I think Nintendo kind of really does feel a bit like the Disney of video games, where they're very overly protective of their properties.
Mm-hmm. For sure. Speaking of Nintendo, and you mentioned earlier them failing to launch a proper online service, let's actually talk about the Nintendo Switch Online expansion pack, which went live this week. So this is coming from the Metro UK. The guys over in Britain. Nintendo Switch Online expansion pack is broken as fans complain of frame rate issues and input lag. So they write, do I have an author here? I do not. Game Central in general. The launch of the Nintendo Switch Online expansion pass has not gone well, judging by the number of complaints on Twitter and Reddit. The expansion pack for Nintendo Switch Online subscription service, which adds support for N64 and Mega Drive games, is already controversial for its high price, so it really needed a problem-free launch to justify its cost. But that's not what happened. In theory, adding support for 2 new formats shouldn't have caused any problems, since Nintendo Switch Online has been around for years now, and indeed there don't seem to be any problems with the often emulated Mega Drive games. N64 games are re-released far less often though, and it's them that are causing the problems. The list of the complaints varies greatly depending on the game, but there are reports of frame rate issues in Mario Kart 64, Star Fox 64, and Yoshi's Island, as well as controller input lag on the likes of Super Mario 64, Zelda Ocarina of Time, and Mario 64. There's also reports of problems with garbled or delayed sound with Super Mario 64 and Mario Kart 64, with music tracks in some of these games being clearly broken. Some issues clearly point to the emulation being rushed or incomplete, with poorly thought out button layouts that bear no relation to how the original game worked. There are also reported issues with textures in Mario Kart 64, with games also throwing up error messages when it tries to use the controller pack, the N64 equivalent of a memory card, which obviously doesn't exist as a physical thing in these emulations. So, this all implies that the service was rushed out without proper testing, which sounds like a terrible idea given how unhappy people already were about the price. The expansion pack can't be subscribed to separately and effectively doubles the price of the original tier to, and I'm not going to go into the British equivalent there. So, Adam, it just gets worse.
I mean,
are you surprised by this?
What? That it's not going over well? No, not at all, given the initial reaction we saw and the fact that it just continues now, because obviously the rumors of things like input lag going on, the fact that it seems like it was very rushed, and even like the word an emulation subscription rushed just makes me cringe just in the idea of hearing that. You know, the fact that like you were so desperate to make a bunch of money that you couldn't even take a second to make sure that the 30-year-old software you were putting on present day technology was just not quite going to work, tells me that this again was just a move that was nothing more about just squeezing more dollars out of the customers that they seem to have gotten some pretty blind loyalty out of. And based on the reactions that I've seen, especially through Reddit, but I mean all over social media, I would imagine, it's nice to see that at least, you know, they can be pretty angry once in a blue moon if they're actually pushed a little bit too far, which at some point I wasn't sure that was going to be even possible, because it seemed like no matter what Nintendo did, there was already a flood of people that would be jumping to defend it. And I have not seen remotely any like large amount of defense at all. Like there might be the smidget of guys that do it because everybody's got to do something different. But in the end, I'm not seeing that movement of like, oh, you guys just don't see the long game they're playing here. Like, no, it's just everybody's pissed.
Yeah, to me, I'm kind of surprised by, like, not the price. We've already talked about the price. I think that was I think, to be honest, I think that was always Nintendo's intention, is to raise the price. I think that, you know, they were just slow to the game. They can't come out right away with the high price. So they came at a low barrier of entry, get people in, get people hooked, and now they're raising the price. But I mean, their price isn't much higher or much less. It's on par with what the other, you know, competitors are doing. And so I don't think that's surprising in that sense. But I think the fact that it launched so poorly is kind of a surprise. I mean, Nintendo has been known for delivering, like when they deliver, you know, like when they deliver on their projects, like they generally last pretty well. And so this just seems like a half-assed rush job. And I think that's kind of, I don't know, it doesn't bode well when you're trying to now raise the price to become a premium product or premium service, and it craps out halfway through. And it's like, these are growing pains, these are growing issues, but it's hard when you are not coming in with the positive message of your pricing, and then the service that you're providing craps out on you.
Well, I mean, you can also make the argument too, if they're trying to become a premium product, you kind of have to offer one that can be considered that. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to keep saying it. Like, I don't care about the Animal Crossing DLC. You push that to the side, because if you don't play that game, it's completely pointless. So you have to look at the thing that is always consistent. Mm-hmm. And that's the emulated games. And they're not worth $30, especially not if it's a library of what? 20, 30?
12. Most? I think it's 12. Oh, like, Nintendo games.
Like on each side? Like it's realistically until you're getting like 20 to 30? Sure, more to come. But here's the thing. I don't see emulation being worth that much money unless we're talking like a substantial chunk of the console's library. Like Nintendo, I can understand Sega, but you own the 64. Throw out more than 12. You have a lot more that you could probably throw there.
I think one of the things is that Nintendo is looking at this, and I've heard rumors, like, granted through Reddit, but whatever, that there is like indications that they're going to start introducing Game Boy and Game Boy Advance games. So I definitely see that this is something that's going to evolve. At some point, they were going to have to put on like this price increase, and I think, to be honest, I think the N64 is the best time to do it. If anyone is really clamoring for a generation of games, I kind of feel like it's the N64, simply because we already have, you know, Super Nintendo and Nintendo. We have the NES and the Super NES minis and stuff. So like we have all those. So I think now was the time when they're announcing this to release that price tag and then slowly add on. Are a lot of people going to jump on for the expansion right now? No. But if they say, hey, it's $50, it comes with these games, people are going to be like, okay, that's not quite enough. But then if they start adding more to the service, that value proposition becomes higher. Granted, coming out with a crappy service that is missing, you know, key functionalities, or, you know, not performing well, that doesn't really lend well. So I think it's one that it'll eventually grow. But I bet that we're going to see a situation where Sony is, or sorry, where Nintendo, people are going to be buying this and saying what a good deal it is.
I mean, we can make that argument as well, but I'm going to say right now that you kind of got to start with something worth the value first. And there's also a precedent that's been set with NES and Super Nintendo that they kind of just stop. They don't necessarily add a bunch and then keep adding as they go.
Mm-hmm.
Similar to what Sony did with the PS2 and PS4 stuff. They put a bunch in to start, and then people, like, it probably just didn't do very well, so they just went, oh, I guess we don't have to do it. The problem is Nintendo, you kind of put a price tag on it now, so you better keep going even if it's not doing anything. Mm-hmm. So it goes both ways in this, but realistically, like, I don't see people looking at, $30 for a set of emulation and thinking, okay, I'm going to be doing this, I'm going to be coming back to this every couple of weeks to see what they've added. I think most people are going to put it down and I think they're almost going the gym membership route where they're just hoping to God that people just kind of forget that they have the subscription, which is worse.
Yeah, I can see that. I don't know. It doesn't bode well, but I think this is something that I hope that, people hold Nintendo's feet to the fire, but I think this is something that eventually people are going to, accept and just get over. It's the same thing that happened when PlayStation Plus became required for online play.
Yeah, but realistically, like, they didn't change a price tag on you. They just kind of added like more to it, didn't they?
No, I remember them raising the price, and I don't think they added stuff to it. Like, the PlayStation Plus subscription has gone up.
Were they not doing the freebies right off the bat? I mean, I was 360 during those days, so I don't remember.
How PlayStation Plus started? It started as an optional thing, like, hey, we're just gonna throw you some free games, whatever. Join if you want. We don't really care. And then when PS4 came out, that's when it became, hey, we're going to require you to play it for online purposes. And the price didn't go up at first, but eventually they did raise the price without adding any sort of significance to make it worthwhile.
Okay.
So, and now nobody complains about the fact, it's very rare that you have people saying, why am I having to pay for online because I didn't have to before.
Yeah, okay, that's true.
Yeah. So,
I mean, but again, we were just talking earlier, and we did talk last week about, them raising the price by $30. What does that really have to be to making it worth it? And again, like we said, if it's not for Animal Crossing, if that's not your thing, realistically, $30 just it isn't enough. And it might be enough in a year, it might be enough in 2 years, but the fact that at the very beginning that at $30 just is not worth it, that's the problem.
I just feel like if they waited until the fact that they could, say we have Game Boy and Game Boy Advance games, people at that point would be like, I don't want to pay the extra for those things, whereas they want to pay extra for the Nintendo games. Because let's be honest, the nostalgia that people have, there are some Game Boy games that people are nostalgic for, but really the nostalgia is for the N64 games of those two consoles.
Yeah, I mean, on top of that too, there's just, you're not going to get a core of people right off the bat for something like that, especially with that price tag. And then, so you really do have to at least you got to start off with a bit more of a bang than 12, or at the very least, you guys could say hey, you could even say let's assume that the rumor's true that they are intending to get Game Boy and Game Boy Advance in there eventually. You could say, hey, here's our roadmap. Here's what's coming in the next, 12 months instead of, hey, $30. Here's the games that we're starting with. And at some point you'll see a couple of these and that's it.
Yeah.
It gives people the sense of okay, they might do something, but then they just look back at the precedent that was set with NES and SNES and go, yeah, but last time they didn't do much either. So are they? At the very least, if they have a roadmap that extends further than adding maybe 5 or 6 games per console after that, people would look at it and be like, oh, so in about a year's time, we might be starting to see Game Boy games, and maybe in 2 years they'll be looking for at least then they have some sense of looking forward. Whereas here, it really just looks like nothing more than just trying to get more money out of people.
I think it's going to come back where they can come later and be like, hey, we heard you guys, we understand we're going to, lower the price by $10 or we're going to add more features. And then it seems like a win for the players, which it won't be. You're still getting the same service.
I mean, we're still
So
going
I
to
think
hope that happens because at least it's something. At least it's an admission of, okay, we might have overdone this a bit. Like, I think the problem though is I find like it's going to have to be hard for them to make that decision because the only way they can really lower the price now is by separating the DLC from it, because I assume that the DLC is priced based on that expansion pack for Animal Crossing. So if they lower the price, what does that say about people who buy the DLC separate if that's all they want?
Well, I mean, they can still buy it separately if they want.
Yeah, but what if? Well, I don't know. Again, I don't know what the price is, but let's assume let's say it's $20.
I think it's like 20, 25 bucks.
So let's say it's 25, and if you pay 30, you get the DLC and that. And then they say, okay, we're gonna take $10 off of it now. If you paid the $25 for the DLC, you kind of feel stupid. Sure, it's $5, but you kind of feel a little bit stupid now.
I don't think that's the case at all. Like, I mean, DLC, like, I mean, typically in any other console environment, DLC typically goes down in price. So, like, if I buy it now, and then 6 months to a year, the overall expansion pass goes cheaper. I don't feel like an idiot.
I was thinking if they were going to do that decision, it would not be a 6 to 12 months thing. Like, the reaction has to be sooner than later, because I think people are that upset. I mean, they might. That's probably what they're going to do. But like, from a fan perspective, I don't want to hear them admitting they were wrong a year later. I want that now. I don't want this bullshit to go on for a full year and then find out I just, wasted my time on it.
Nintendo has to sit and wait and see, and I don't think they're expecting everyone to clamor over and buy the expansion pass. But
I hope they don't expect if a year from now they drop $10 on it, everybody's gonna be like, "Oh, it's so worth it now." I think people will be like, "Really, guys? It took you this long?"
Hey, no, I mean, I think that's definitely what they do. I mean, they released a compatibility for Bluetooth headphones like a month ago, and it's been in the console this entire time. I think Nintendo gets a pass on a lot of stuff, and I think that they kind of know that they can do that.
I mean, look, I guess in a way, like, everybody gets a pass because, I mean, again, like, some people were mad about Sony stuff, and we've kind of forgotten that too. I'm sure in a year's time we'll have forgotten about this whole thing. A lot of this is just reacting to the current, displeasure that's going on right now, right?
And I think the fact that, the N64 controllers are sold out, it's a pretty good indication that, Nintendo's targets are being met. Not saying that everyone's buying it, but like the fact that people are buying them, that's any indication that we have right now that, people are going for it.
Yeah.
So, speaking of things that are missing, let's transition to our last news story of the day. And this one was an interesting one that I thought was kind of a worthy discussion. So Xbox exec admits PlayStation has them beat in one key area. So this is coming from Game Rant, Emmanuel Ortiz. So he writes, and I'm going to skip a little bit here. In an interview with Kind of Funny, Xbox executive Matt Booty has shared that he feels as though Xbox has been behind Sony when it comes to large tentpole games. Booty states, I think I tend to come at that more that we're paying attention to fan expectations. I think there's a certain kind of game that generates an anticipation that kind of becomes this tentpole moment. It's a game that fits that intersection of everybody can play, and it's also a big world you can inhabit. I think those kind of games are important, and certainly it's been a place where we have not been out in front. We haven't really had that sort of one-to-one with Sony there. Booty continues a bit by saying that Xbox is not done growing, and that what's important to the company is making sure that we have those types of games for our fans. It's something that Xbox will continue to work on, and seemingly something that is in the middle of accomplishing. As of right now, Xbox has unveiled two notable AAA games coming up with Halo Infinite and Forza Horizon 5, both of which should satisfy fans in the long running. Yeah, so Adam, one, do you think that Microsoft is behind Sony in terms of its tentpole games? Do you think that Xbox needs these tentpole games? And can they deliver on those tentpole games?
To start with question one, of course they are. They're way behind. I mean, it's no question. I mean, we're still having the conversations right now about at the very launch. Like, sure, we make fun of PlayStation for not having nearly as much at launch as well. but they've certainly put out a lot more in terms of big time, games that Microsoft hasn't even come close to, if at all. The second question, sorry, was it do they need to have them, or is it?
Yeah, do they need them?
If their business model requires them to like have these big money games, of course. But I think right now, like, their business model is currently more occupied in just getting subscriptions for Game Pass. So it may not necessarily be the quality that's going to bring a lot of their customers in. It might just be the quantity. That's why you go with Bethesda. That's why, like, all these rumors of more acquisitions are coming in. It makes you consider the possibility that, well, yeah, it's not like they're not going to try to make 9, 10 out of 10 games, but their goal more or less is going to be to try to more flood the market so they get as many people in as many niche areas as they can, so that they can maximize their ability to get those subscriptions in. So do they need them? It's honestly a coin flip, because I mean, as it stands right now, like, sure, they didn't hit their growth target that they wanted, as we talked about last week, but they're still growing to a very high degree. They're still doing very well. So you could argue that as of right now, even with the lack of major first-party titles they're coming out with, they're doing just fine. So maybe they don't need them. But would it put them over the edge and really get that key, like, growth they're looking for just happen that much easier, and maybe even surpass that? Sure, it probably would make it better, but I don't think it's a need so much as it's probably like, it would be a nice to have, I guess, at this point.
Yeah, I'm with you. One, is Xbox behind in terms of tentpole games? Absolutely. I mean, if you think about it, we're about one year into these consoles now, give or take. And Sony has released Spider-Man Miles Morales, once again backwards compatible, whatever. Sackboy Big Adventure, once again backwards compatible, whatever. But Ratchet and Clank, Returnal, Kena Bridge of Spirits,
Demon
and
Souls.
this is Demon Souls, and this is a gray area, but like Deathloop, which I know is like a Bethesda game, but it's on exclusive for Sony. That one I'll give as a wash. But like, they've got those exclusives, and for me, I can't really find Xbox exclusives that are like catching people's like interest. Like, I'm seeing things like The Ascent, The Artful Escape, like nothing that's like blowing my mind right now. Yes, Halo and Forza are coming down the pipe. Those are great. And I don't know. I'm not seeing that huge hype for them. So like, I don't know if they do. Like, they're certainly behind Sony in those big tentpole games. However, I don't know if Microsoft is a game company that really can and wants to compete with Sony, and in the exclusive department, I mean. And here's why. These two consoles have set themselves up as very different experiences. Sony, I find, both in a good and a bad way, present themselves as a premium experience. You are paying for that console, you're paying the premium for their games. Like, their game prices have gone up. Like, it's big that they're now coming to PC. Like, they are a very exclusive and very closed in club when it comes to their games. And their games are fantastic. Like, I'm a Sony pony, whatever. But regardless of what you think of The Last of Us, regardless of what you think of Ghost of Tsushima, like, those games are impressive. From the medium as a whole, it's a very impressive thing what those games accomplish. And I don't know if Microsoft's business strategy has the scale and the scope for what that requires. And not to say that they can't, but right now their main business venture, or the way that they're going about, is through Game Pass. And Game Pass is fantastic. It's cool. It's awesome. Not trying to shit on Game Pass. However, with that subscription model, you cannot charge, like, you are charging the same amount of money for a indie game that took, a couple 100,000 versus a AAA exclusive game like Naughty Dog's Last of Us. Last of Us has that opportunity where they can use that game several times to make that revenue. They sell it as a standalone game first off, create most of the revenue that way. Then they use it to help push their services like PlayStation Plus, PlayStation Now. That's their second source of revenue. And now we're starting to see where they're putting it onto PC. So they have the time and the scope and the scale that they can sort of make those huge $1 million blockbusters. And I don't know if Game Pass facilitates that I can, whether I put in the millions of dollars, hundreds of thousands of man hours into making a massive AAA game experience, I don't know if Game Pass can support that, because I can't charge more or less for Game Pass based on the games that are on there. Does it drive people to the service? Probably, but it's not driving more revenue by having those larger games. There's no incentive for Xbox to invest that kind of capital into those games. And that's not a problem. Like, they're going down two different avenues. I feel like Microsoft's game is quality, but it's quantity as much as quality. Whereas Sony is about the quality and like these masterful AAA games. And I'm not, this is coming across very much like me shitting on and console warring with Xbox. I'm not. They have a different strategy and it's working absolutely perfect for them. But I can't see a situation where they're making these games and then they have to come out and say, by the way, here's our new equivalent to Naughty Dog. It is not going to be on Game Pass day one and we will add it later. Because then that kind of divides and splits up Game Pass. And so I think for Xbox, they certainly want to make good games. They want to make, games that people get excited for, but I don't think that they can invest the same time of capital and time and effort and stuff into making a Last of Us, making a Horizon, like those kind of massive online games, or not massive online games, but those massive tentpole games. Am I out in left field, Adam?
No, you might be right down the center field line on that one. But I really don't know if even Microsoft cares that they have tentpole games or not. Because, like I said, I think their business model might be leaning towards just getting people in the subscription service, and that's all they really give a shit about. They have so much money that I don't think it means much to them if they're, making the same amount of money that they are putting an indie game on than they are having Bethesda making, potentially a really high quality game with whatever Starfield ends up becoming. I don't know if it looks different to them. Whereas with Sony, I think they understand that their business is largely going to be factored in on what they have running at that time. Like, what's the big thing they got to come up next with? And you notice that with their big trailers, like a lot of times when Xbox, like, you even just compared like the E3 to the latest like big showcase that Sony did. There's a bunch of trailers scattered in the Xbox one, but did any of them really get like big, like, holy shit level things? I would say no. But then you have Spider-Man 2, then you have Wolverine, and you can keep going. You can probably name like 4 or 5 off the top of your head right there. God of War. Yeah, there's so much else. So it's very clear where the two of them seem to see each other as. Sony knows that their business is going to be large in part on the games that they're selling, and Xbox large in part just knows that all they got to do is just make that product that they have, which being Game Pass, has a reason for you to go and get it. Now, is it enough reason for you to go buy a console? Well, that depends on if you have a PC or not. But if you have a PC, you're just sitting there being like, well, I might miss a couple of games because they won't put it on PC. But as long as I have Game Pass, I have like probably a 75% of their catalog. I'm good. And it's only costing me what? $10, $15? No prob. So, I mean, does a tentpole game, like, let's say Sony had this service, like, I want that service to have Uncharted and God of War and all that. But then if you're Sony and you don't have nearly that kind of money to burn, then maybe it's not quite helping you. So I guess in Microsoft's case, I don't think them losing to Sony and tentpole games really is even an issue to them at this point.
Yeah, like I look at something, Sony, you're right, lives and dies by those exclusives, right? No one is buying a PlayStation to play. I mean, someone is, but no one's buying it to play Back for Blood, or no one's buying it exclusively as like Assassin's Creed. Like, those third-party games aren't moving the needle for Sony. Like, what's really selling them is these massive tentpole games. That's Sony's bread and butter, and that's what they need. For Xbox, their game is about subscriptions and keeping those subscriptions up. And using the example, like, I'd say probably one of, if not the most, I think the one game that might bring more people to Game Pass, it's not going to be Forza, it's not going to be Halo, because those ones are games that we've all kind of like, you're either in that camp or you're not. No one's like no one's switching over from PlayStation for Halo. Like the PlayStation fanboys have accepted that Halo is forbidden fruit for them. But where it's going to be is it's going to be Starfield, right? And Starfield, we haven't seen much of that game yet. And what might happen is you'll certainly get some some Sony people, and I think you've admitted this yourself, is that you're gonna hop on Game Pass, play it on PC for a little while, and they might get some new subscribers, but after a month or two, those people are gonna bounce out, and so at most, I think it's what is it, like $30 a month or $15 a month for Game Pass,
something like that. I don't know. I don't check my credit card statement anymore.
All right, fantastic, ladies and gentlemen. Go at Adam for credit card fraud.
Please don't.
I'm not advocating that. Do not go after Adam for that. We talked earlier about how little money we make with this, so we don't need to have that headache. But what I'm saying is that game, Starfield, whether it is a 10 out of 10 or a 7 out of 10, will generate as much revenue. Like, it won't generate much more. It's not going to move the needle that much for subscribers. And so I don't think they necessarily need to. I think, you want to have games that are appealing to people and that will draw them to Game Pass, but they do not need to be at the level that PlayStation has for their exclusives. And once again, neither of these options is better than the other. Neither is right or wrong. These are two different companies playing in two different fields now. They're playing two separate games. And I don't know if they need to necessarily care too much to compete in each other's space.
Yeah, I don't think we're gonna see a point where we're gonna be looking at, like, say, I don't know, maybe E3 next year, or if it's still not back to normal next year, the year after that, assuming it's still going. I don't think we're gonna be looking at those two shows and being like, man, Xbox killed Sony on the games, and everybody's worried. And I don't think people are gonna be like, man, Sony killed Xbox on the games, and they're all thinking, man, Sony's clearly won. I think if you have any sort of like actual awareness of what's going on, you look at it and be like, okay, Sony did what they were supposed to do. They got you excited for their games, so you go buy them day one. And Xbox did exactly what they did by just shoving so much stuff in your face that you go, well, I can pay $15 and I can play all of that.
There's something, yeah, in Game Pass, there's something for everyone. And this is, if I was Xbox, like, don't focus on making your own first party studios. Like, where I would go is, and this is where I feel like the real battleground should be, or is going to be, is in the third party games, right? If Xbox can go to Ubisoft and say, hey, you've got this new Assassin's Creed, whatever, coming out, Assassin's Creed Caveman, like, hey, yeah, sell it on the PlayStation 5, we don't care, but can we also put it on Game Pass, right? Then the situation becomes, hey, if I'm playing most of my games are third-party games, which I imagine they are for a lot of people, it then makes sense for you to go to Game Pass. It makes sense for you to get your Assassin's Creeds, to get your Guardians of the Galaxy, to get those kind of games on Game Pass. It's a much better value. So don't compete where, you're fighting one-on-one. Go where the middle ground is and start carving that out. And I think that's what Xbox is doing with their acquisitions of studios. But I don't know if that necessarily, that just makes it so that people are no longer comparing. Like, if it becomes a situation where Tomb Raider is only an Xbox exclusive, then I'm not going to care. It's going to be cut off. I'm going to say, okay, that's now an Xbox game. I don't play that one. But if I'm sitting there at the store and I'm holding a copy of the game, knowing that I can just pay $15 and go try it right now, that's a much better, that's where you're more competitive. And I feel like that may be where Xbox needs to go.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, just honestly keep on the path you're going, and just maybe don't pouty face when you miss your percentage target by, like, what, 10%?
Something like that.
It's okay. You'll be fine. You're Microsoft. You got money. You're cool.
Yeah. All right. I think that's a good place. I think we've given enough that I can see where the comments are coming on YouTube. So
what about how I need to shut up every time? Yeah, that sounds about right.
I don't know. We'll see. I'm really curious to see what people say about that. So if you're checking us out, let us know on YouTube, on the comments, or just give us a shout on Twitter. Let us know, where you fall in this camp. Does Xbox need the tentpoles? Do they not? Are we right? Are we wrong? Let us know. Adam, let's wrap it up. You said you had one more thing for us.
Did.
An untimely review for Back for Blood.
Yeah, I mean, I obviously there's not really a finish point of this game, but
I got to do my intro.
Oh, do you?
Yeah, I was just kind of like confirming and then going into it.
Oh, okay.
Ladies and gentlemen, as you know, we are not influential enough, nor do we have the finances to get games ahead of embargoes. So we review games on our own dime, on our own time, and bring you the reviews when we can, making them untimely reviews. This week, to no one's surprise, as we already hinted, Adam has an untimely review for Back for Blood. Adam, let us know what you think.
Yeah, like I said, I haven't finished it because there isn't necessarily a finish point. I mean, I've played through all the missions currently. I've unlocked a significant amount of cards. I've done a lot to, at the very least, I feel like I've got a good run in. So, I think we're good. I think I can make a case for, having enough time in there that I can make a good opinion of it. So yeah,
remember we talked about this last week about the reviews. You don't need to rush through and finish it. It's about getting what the average person's experience would be.
All right, so I play with enough idiots online on random, so I think I've gotten a good ascent. No, honestly, there's really no way to put it aside from if you've been waiting for Left 4 Dead 3, you got this and you got it in spades. I know there's some complaints that people have had, and the difficulty is really, really hard to begin with, and it is. If you play on what's supposed to be the middle difficulty, you can't. If you start this game on veteran, you will fail because the way the game is kind of designed is through its card system, which are things that give you perks and stuff. You have more health, or you have weapon bonuses, or you find more stuff out in the wild, whether it's ammunition or grenades or med kits or anything like that. The game is more or less designed for you to play it a bunch, collect a bunch of cards to really ramp up your character better, and then you progress more and more. It's a game that you just keep coming back to, and it's why I like it a lot, because it doesn't demand me to keep up. It's not like, a game as a service where, you got to make sure you're staying with it because they're going to keep adding stuff and you're going to miss out. Now it's just dude, go have fun, shoot a bunch of zombies, probably get absolutely just glomped to death, or, have some giant, massive zombie, which I pray to God if there's a zombie apocalypse, we don't have these level of mutations, because we're screwed if we have kaiju level zombies walking around. But you walk into this game, you plop it in for a couple hours, you unlock some cool stuff, whether it's some more cards, maybe weapon skins, character skins. Now, I guess there's one complaint: the character skins suck. That's something they better be adding forward, because most of the stuff is not interesting. I hope they don't charge for it either, but we'll see where that goes. But you really just walk in and you plop it in, you get a couple of rounds in, you unlock some stuff, and then you come back another day. Whether that's with friends or just in randoms, the experience is mostly the same, unless you play with friends that just scream more. Then it's just louder. But otherwise, I mean, do you got any questions before I talk about the actual gameplay? Because that's more important anyway.
Yeah, so just you know what? Do your thing, and then I'll ask the questions at the end, because you might already cover it. So just give us your full review, and then I'll ask the what the audience is probably thinking.
Sure. In terms of gameplay, again, very, very similar to Left 4 Dead. You have your journey to a safe house. They do sprinkle some more objectives in this, rather than it just being finish the level or pull the lever, horde comes. There's still those things. But there are also there's one mission where you see the safe house pretty near in the level, but you got to go further in, save a bunch of NPCs, and then get back to the safe house. So it adds a little bit more. There's another map where it's in one of the first parts of the initial act, where you got to run onto a boat, somehow get out of that mess, go to where there's a couple of military guys. They tell you, hey, we need to set explosive on this thing so we can just cut off this route. And you got to go back on the boat, get all the way through that, plant 2 bombs, and get the hell out of there before it blows up, because you only have about a minute. And even just that is enough to be it isn't just survive for 5 minutes. It's not just the same old, same old. They've switched up the missions enough that, you can play through, I played through the entire act in one sitting, and I didn't feel like I was playing the same level over and over again. Yeah, there are the odd levels that have, just get to the end, which is fine, but then they mix it up, which keeps it fresh. And then on top of that, the gameplay is just even better, adding a few more cascade of weapons. You have more grenades to work with. You have like now mods so you can make your weapons better. There are things like these special doors that you can open as long as you have a certain tool, which will find things that you might really need, which are more modifications for your guns, maybe better weapons, and the really, really necessary medical charging kits, which you might come really desperate for if you're playing on harder difficulties. So there's enough there to keep it from just basically being a long slog of just walking and just hoping you find ammo and maybe a med kit here and there and then you're good. There is enough there. And these levels are relatively short too, so they don't drag either, which is sometimes some of the levels in the original Left 4 Deads, they maybe kind of outstayed their welcome a little too much, whereas these ones don't necessarily feel that way. So really, all in all, like, they've basically just improved upon everything and just made it so that, you know, it's not... I guess Left 4 Dead wasn't necessarily a slog, but if it ever was, they've removed that from this game. So it's basically improved it in every way. Like, the only complaints you can really have are pretty minor, in my opinion.
And what are those? Just...
Like I said, like the difficulty, if you don't know any better, the game should tell you from the very beginning, start on Recruit. Not because you're bad at the game, but because the game is specifically designed to be for when you have more and more perks on your characters or more cards to add up. Because the default set they give you will not prepare you for the absolute massive waves of zombies, and especially the special infected that they throw in later. Because that's when you need things like weak spot damage or more use, like you can open up your inventory so you can carry 2 grenades, sometimes even 3, and having certain characters that work really well together because also there's 8 different characters and they have their own special abilities too. It isn't just pick your skin, it's this character gets an automatic revive, or this character, every kill gets like a bonus to their accuracy or damage, or this person's really fast when it comes to using things, whether it's planting bombs or repairing stuff. Like there's all those little things that add up if you have a good cohesion together too. So it isn't just, if you're really, really good, you'll just go through. You might be able to pull a bit of your weight, but you kind of got to have a good collection of people with the right mesh, and then you also have to have the cards that are ready to prepare you for the situations that you're going to be in.
So that brings up 2 questions that you kind of touched on there. One, you know, having good cohesion with the group and stuff. Is this game something that you could either play single player or with randos, or is this something that you need to have a dedicated group of friends to play with?
If you want to play with randoms, start on Recruit and wait until you're really, really comfortable with the game to even try Veteran, because without communication, it's not easy, because you got to be able to point out, you know, where all the choke points are, where like certain like special enemies are. There is the Q key or whatever it might be on control to like tag stuff, but that's like, you gotta be quick to get those off, and sometimes people still don't pay attention. If you really want to play like Veteran, and especially Nightmare, which I hear is exactly what it entails in the name, you probably should play with people that you can talk to. But I mean, if you're just looking to just have a romp, you can play with randoms and be mostly fine, even without communication. But if you're looking for a challenge, you might want to have people to play with. Like, if you're looking for the harder stuff, you'll want to play with people over randoms.
And this is something where you do need to have, like, 4 actual people. You can't play, like, you and a couple bots.
If you only have 3 people, it will try to find a 4th random to throw in there, and if they leave, you're stuck with a bot forever. And the bots, for the most part, don't really hold their own very well.
Okay. And then the other one you talked about was the skins and, like, the character archetypes. You said there was like 8 different ones with each their own special perks. Like, does it feel balanced that no matter, like, that they all sort of carry equal weight, or is there clearly ones that are optimal and some that are subpar?
It really depends on what you want to do. Like, if you're going for harder stuff, there probably are a certain collection of characters you want to pick. But if you're going solo, there are some characters that maybe benefit you more. Like, there's one guy, like I said, if you get kills, it just increases and stacks your accuracy, and that might be really good when you're new and trying to figure it out. So, like, I think it really depends specifically on what you're trying to do. If you're going into, like, heavy difficulties, you don't want the guy who's just really a perk for himself. You'll want to make sure that you have 4 characters that are all going to benefit each other. But it really depends. Like, enough of a skill level will probably get you by with most things, but, like, it's really hard to ignore certain characters when they offer things like an extra med kit or, you know, having a free revive. Like, those things can be pretty important when you're getting into the real nitty-gritty of stuff. So, like, you can make an argument that right now you would probably lean towards maybe 5 specific characters, and the other 3 are more like I don't care if somebody picks it, but it probably wouldn't be where I'd go. And then who knows, maybe they'll add more down the line that just in kind of like an Overwatch scenario where if this game keeps doing what it's doing, if it's able to sustain, a decent player base, like you could add more characters in there and have some more abilities. I couldn't think off the top of my head what might be beneficial. Maybe you have some guy who's just like, maybe his melee is super fast or like he's really strong, so his melee like does like double damage or something. Like there's things like that you could do with it that could definitely add on to it. But as it stands right now, I think they've found a pretty decent balance, and it's just a matter of if the sustainment of the game is possible that they could go further with it.
Yeah, you touched on another thing there that I was going to ask next. Was sustainment and having a player base there. Do you feel that there's enough content in the initial release? One, for what just the price tag commands, whether you're buying it on PlayStation or if you are getting it through Game Pass. Like, does it feel like it's substantial enough in terms of content to keep players engaged? What is the player count like, and how do you see it going? And lastly, like, is the game feel fresh enough in terms of like, does it have longevity?
I'll look at it from two ways, right? So in terms of value, if you have Game Pass, this is an easy get. There's no question. Mm-hmm. I'm assuming it's $80 on PlayStation right now. I wouldn't pay 80. I wouldn't pay 80 for it. I think it is full price. I mean, even if it was 60, I still think it's probably not worth 60 because this is that kind of price determines something that you're going to play a lot and play it very often right away. You could very easily wait for this to go half off anywhere, whether it's Steam, whether it's on console, and you'd be fine. You can definitely get your money's worth out of it for $40. Like, this is the kind of game that like I'll play with my friends maybe once every week or two, depending on if we feel like playing the same game every week, because we play together once a week. So like, is it worth the whatever monthly payment I'm paying for everything else?
It is a full price game, by the way.
Yeah, if it's full price, unless that's going to be your thing for a while, you could probably wait for it to drop at least $20-$30.
Now, do you think that the game has enough legs? Like, we have a ton of games that are now like games of service, live games, online that kind of live and die by being online. Do you think that this is a game that is going to have longevity and staying power?
If it eventually supports mods, yes. If it doesn't, that might be a challenge down the road. But I mean, Left 4 Dead is still pretty popular, so there is a distinct possibility that it will, even without modding. But I think like a lot of PC games, if they don't let's assume they don't ever add anything else to it, which I don't think that would be the case because it would make more sense given the fact they have cards and skins and stuff. They would add more. But if they chose not to, this could still last, like have a decent community that runs it, because it's a game, again, that you can just pop in every once in a blue moon and play and have a good time. It's like a lot of games that people play, like if you're looking at things like Gang Beasts or I guess even Overwatch or things of that ilk, like there are always games that you can pop in once in a blue moon, play a few rounds and be happy with especially with friends. But like in terms of it being like top of the charts, like pretty high numbers consistently, I don't know if it'll do that the entire time. I think it would take its ebbs and flows where obviously if they, plop a new map, like a new act in, so there's more missions, or maybe they do a special crossover with something, like, yeah, you could get some sustained like player base for a chunk of time again, but I don't think it's going to be like a high number forever. This isn't going to be like a Fortnite. This isn't going to be even like a CS:GO. Like there's no real PvP scene out for it either, so it's just a co-op game for the most part. So it's really just going to stem on, is it good enough that you could keep coming back to it with your friends? I think so, but I don't think that it necessarily translates to it being a high count. I think you'll see like a consistent, like it'll be in the thousands, I think, would almost consistently for a long time, I would guess. But that really is just dependent on if the price starts dropping later on PC or on console, so that more players are probably thinking it's more worth the price now. Because like I said, $80, like it's a great game, but for $80, I don't see myself like going back to it enough times to justify $80 at launch.
Fair enough. I think that's anything else you want to close on? I think that's a good place to end it, but if you have any more thoughts.
I mean, like I said, if you were looking for Left 4 Dead, they finally gave it to us. It took way too long for, I guess, former devs in Valve to do it, but they did their job and it did exactly what it was supposed to do. I love it. And I hope that as its life cycle goes on, that they continue to add to it, because I think there's a lot of potential here. I don't think it's going to be like, levels of, like I just said, with Fortnite or even Overwatch. I don't think it's going to turn into like that game that every 6 months people go back to in droves. I think it's going to be hey, we haven't played Left 4 Dead in a few months. Hey, do you guys want to pop that in and play a few rounds and just mash some zombies into paste? And we'll be like, yeah, sure, let's do it. But I don't think it's going to be like every week we'll be like, all right, it's Back 4 Blood night, let's go. It's a game you can add to your rotation if you're playing with a bunch of friends.
Awesome. That's all. That's to hear. Glad it was generally a success, and I hope it does have some legs. And for us, I think that's where we're going to leave it. Thank you so much for joining us. If this is your first time checking us out, we hope it was good for you. Certainly good for us. If you're one of our regulars, thank you so much for sticking with us. We really appreciate your support. Hey, if you like the show, why don't you join us on Discord? We have a little Discord where you guys can come and chat and let us know what you think of Back 4 Blood. Maybe join up with Adam if you want to see, and just generally hang out with us and chat. You can also find us on Twitter and Instagram by searching for pixelplaycast. You can always hear our sultry voices wherever you get your podcast, and you can see our lovely faces by searching for us on YouTube, Pixel Play Podcast, Pixel Play, all one word. I've been your host, Kaylan, aka Ktastrophy, joined as always by my co-host, Adam, CSRadical. Thank you guys so much, and we will see you guys next week. Bye for now.